Welcome back to the BJack 70 show. I'm your host, Brandon Jackson, and Browns fans, we have to have a conversation about Brendan Sorsby. But before we get into that, I just want to say thank you to all my new subscribers, new viewers. Thank you for being here. Thanks for watching. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe now. Hit the like button, and we'll keep pushing. But like I said, Cleveland Browns fans, we got to talk about Brendan Sorsby. And if you don't know who Brendan Sorsby is, he is a quarterback, college football quarterback, last played for the University of Cincinnati, but transferred in the last transfer window to Texas Tech to be their starting quarterback. Unlikely that he's going to be starting for anybody in college in 2026. And the reason is because allegedly there was a press release maybe a few weeks ago at this point. There was a press release from Texas Tech saying Brendan Sorsby was going into rehab for a gambling addiction. So that came out, and he was going to be away from the team indefinitely, and that was that. But then on the other side of that, reporting came out that he had allegedly gambled on Indiana football games in 2023 when Sorsby himself was on the roster. I don't believe he played in the games that he bet on Indiana, but I believe he bet on Indiana to win these football games, but he was on the Indiana football roster at the time that he was placing these bets. That's a big no-no. That is a huge no-no. If you're a Division I football player at any point, day one compliance meeting, they tell you everything that you can't do. I don't know what it's like now, but back in 2011, when I first got to campus, they told us we couldn't even play fantasy football. So you damn sure can't actually go on an app and bet on football. So, it's still up in the air at this point, but it is most likely Brendan Sorsby will not be playing college football in 2026 or any year after that. So if he wants to continue his football career, it would have to be at the professional level. Now, the part where Browns fans come in and we need to have a discussion is because there's this thing called the Supplemental Draft, and after the regular NFL draft that just happened a couple weeks ago, there's a supplemental draft that players in college that are eligible to be drafted can go into the supplemental draft, and teams, they blind bid a pick for these players, and whoever, I don't know exactly how it works, if they bid in the same round, but somehow, some way, one of those teams will win that player out of the supplemental draft. And there's been a lot of talk about the Browns and if they're interested in Brendan Sorsby, if he does choose to take the route of the supplemental draft. And first thing I want to talk about, I got a couple things that I want to talk about as it relates to this, but the first thing is Todd McShay. Todd McShay, draft analyst, been doing this for a very long time. On his podcast, just kind of mentioned that Brendan Sorsby has enough talent to be worth a first-round pick in the supplemental draft. And I just want to start the conversation by saying, if any team bid a first-round pick in the supplemental draft, By the way, I've not done well explaining the supplemental draft if you don't know what it is, but when you bid a pick, that pick that you bid, if you get the player, is taken out of the upcoming NFL draft. So if the Browns were to bid a third round pick, they would have one less third round pick in the 2027 draft. So getting back to Tom McShay says Brendan Sorsby is worth a first rounder. If any team were to bid a first round pick for Brendan Sorsby in the supplemental draft, they are going to get fired, and they will deserve it, because that is an absolutely unbelievable way to go about using resources. First round picks are way too valuable of an asset to spend in the supplemental draft. Anytime anybody goes in the supplemental draft, it's a third round, fourth round, fifth round, something of that nature. Even maybe a second round, but nobody's going to use their first round pick, especially in the 2027 draft. The reason being, first of all, if you use a first round pick, you don't know what could befall your team in 2026. Like you could think you're ready to go to the Super Bowl, but your quarterback could get injured and your receivers and O-line could get injured, and now you're 3-14. Now you have the number one pick. Now you could have got Arch Manning. Now you could have got Dante Moore, but you chose to get Brendan Sorsby, the gambler. That's number one. But number two, just generally for 2027, and next week I'm going to get into previewing the 2027 draft, because there's a lot of talk going around about how good this draft is. They are not lying. The 2027 draft, just as prospects go, is going to be one of the best that we've ever seen. Now, of course, this remains to be seen what these guys do when they eventually get to the NFL and start actually playing football games. But as far as the level and type of prospects that we have in the 2027 draft, it's unlike we've seen in a long time. There's a whole bunch of quarterbacks that could possibly go in the first round. Now, they're not all going to go in the first round. They're not all going to be first round caliber. A lot of that depends on what they do in this upcoming season. You can ask guys like Carson Beck, Drew Adler, Cade Klubnik, who thought they might go first round after their senior years, but there's a bigger group of prospects at quarterback that could potentially go first round, and it seems likely that a lot of them will be first round worthy. But not only the quarterbacks, there's multiple potential first round running backs. There's a bunch of first round caliber wide receivers. There's so many that you might just wait, and that might push them down the board, and you can get an excellent one in the second. So there's a bunch of those. There's a couple of high-end left tackle prospects, like left tackle specifically. There's a couple of edge rushers that both are better than the edge rushers of the 2026 draft. And that's respect to David Bailey. That's respect to Arvell Reese and Ruben Bain. But Dylan Stewart and Colin Simmons are both better, I think, prospects than those guys. And then you have an absolute shutdown corner who's been one of, if not the best corner in college football since he stepped on campus at Notre Dame. There's just so many things. So getting back to Sorsby and the supplemental draft, if you use your first round pick in this draft on that guy, I just don't think it would be wise. And that's not even me saying who Sorsby is as a football player, because Sorsby is talented. Sorsby already has first round buzz on all of your way too early 2027 mock drafts. Sorsby was in the first round. Sorsby was being selected in these mock drafts. Um, he just needed, one more season on top of it to cement it, to make sure that it's not fool's gold. But people have been talking about Brendan Sorsby already. He is talented, and you can pull up the film and you can see some of the throws that he makes, some of the athleticism that he has. He is a very good prospect, but the gambling part of it is it's definitely a wild card. It's definitely something that needs to be looked into and made sure that part is good. Like the statement from Texas Tech said he was going to check into rehab for a gambling problem. I say we, but it's going to be an NFL team figuring this out. Is he going to rehab for PR and trying to save face, or was he going to rehab because he really needed to go to rehab for the gambling addiction? That is what needs to be known. Because if you're going to use, and we're not talking about a first, nobody's going to do a first, but the real talk that's going on in the streets, the Twitter streets, is that it could take a second round pick to get Brendan Sorsby. So if you're using a second round pick in the supplemental draft, you better be sure that he went to rehab and it was, for PR reasons, not for actual addiction reasons. And again, if it is the latter, if he really does need the help, I really hope that he can get all the help that he needs, because everybody can see the damage that all, like, the gambling and the ads and how prevalent it is and how in your face it is for young men in America. That particular addiction is crippling a lot of people. It's affecting a lot of people. On this YouTube channel, I do Brandon's bets. I gamble on football myself, but I choose to only do football season. Like, I'm not really on FanDuel at any other point other than football season. Basketball season comes, if I go to a Cavs game in Cleveland and I just want to throw something on the spread, I might do it while I'm at the game for fun. But I'm not betting. I'm not usually betting on the NBA. I never bet on MLB. Like, I feel like that's too crazy. I can't get into that. But it is an issue for a lot of people, a lot of young men, a lot of men in general specifically. And if he needs that help, I really truly hope he gets that help and can get it under control, because him, with as bright of a future that he has, and he does seemingly have a bright future in the game of football, I hope he can get it under control, and I hope this doesn't, affect that in the long term. But in the short term that we're talking about right now, it has to be figured out. There has to be kind of a resolution to what's happening for teams to really, go forward and move forward with this. So as a Browns fan, there's been a whole lot of talk about, do the Browns go and try to get Brendan Sorsby? And I mentioned personally on Twitter that I'm hesitant, not because of the football player, just because of everything I talked about with potentially what's going to happen with him coming out of rehab. And you're in the NFL, you're a professional athlete, you're going to have access to a lot of money. You are going to be on your own. There's not going to be anybody, a team or college to, be around you and take care of you. It's going to be, something different. So personally, my stance on it as a Browns fan, I would rather not use a pick on Sorsby at this stage. If more information comes out, I'm willing to change my opinion. But just, on off the field stuff, I would probably hesitate to do it. But there is talk about the Browns being interested in the Browns doing work to figure out all these things that I'm talking about. And that's smart to do. It is definitely smart to, do your due diligence and figure out what is going on, what could potentially happen. But I imagine every other team that doesn't have a quarterback, their franchise quarterback, should be doing their due diligence just in case. Because if you're sure, like if you do your due diligence and you're sure that it was a one-time mistake, which some reporting suggests that it wasn't, but if it was a one-time mistake, that's one thing. But if it was a one-time mistake and you figure that out, if you can get a franchise quarterback for a third-round pick, you're going to do it. If you can do it for a second-round pick, you're going to do it. So due diligence should be done, and not only the Browns should be doing it. I mean, New York Jets should be trying to figure this out. Pittsburgh Steelers should be trying to figure this out. Arizona Cardinals should be trying to figure this out. Who else? Who else doesn't have a quarterback? I mean, Minnesota Vikings, just in case it doesn't work out with Kyler. I believe it will, but just in case it doesn't work out with Kyler, Vikings should be, figuring this out. Teams need to be, just checking in, crossing the T's, dotting the I's, just to make sure. Just to make sure. Because if you can land a good quarterback, just with some throwaway picks, you should do it. But yeah, so obviously the Browns should be doing their due diligence, and also just by how we know the Browns have moved this offseason, they're definitely going to make sure they do their due diligence on Sorsby, because we know that they even had some interest in Ty Simpson. Ty Simpson went way higher than anybody of us thought in the actual draft. So who's to say he couldn't go higher? Brendan Sorsby couldn't go higher in the supplemental draft if people wanted him bad enough. So, the Browns had some interest in Ty Simpson. Andrew Berry confirmed that. Could he have been in play at 24? Maybe. But we'll, like Kanye said, I guess we'll never know. So, and I'm glad we don't have to know. But they've been doing, trying to figure out what this quarterback room is going to look like, whether it's Sorsby, where there's interest in Ty Simpson, whether it's drafting Taylor Green, who figures to not be involved heavily into who's going to be quarterback one, in 2026. But, that is a move at quarterback, just to throw a dart, see what you got. Maybe, who knows, maybe Taylor Green at, rookie minicamp surprises us and he becomes a factor. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but, you never know. That's the dart throw. You just never know what could potentially happen with that. But all these moves kind of make it clear that the Browns aren't satisfied with what they have in the quarterback room. That doesn't mean they don't like a guy, two guys, three guys in the quarterback room, but they definitely aren't satisfied with what they have in the room. And this isn't hate. This isn't, me talking down on any of the guys at this moment. I'm just saying read actions and not words. I'm not going to get into the Mary Kay Cabot of it all, actually, I will in a second, but right now I'm not saying who's in the lead or anything like that, but they are showing with their interest in where they're peaking and what buckets they're looking in and what cabinets they're trying to open, that they are available. They are open and willing to get another quarterback if the opportunity presents itself. And that's how it should be. That's how it should be. Given what we've seen from all of the quarterbacks on the roster so far, that is a smart route to take, blankly. But speaking about the quarterback room, and this is going to be the last thing I talk about in this video, but Kellen Mond, who was a quarterback at Texas A&M, backup quarterback for the Vikings, was in the building with Cleveland as a quarterback for a small period of time. He had a tweet that's gone kind of viral talking about the Browns quarterback competition specifically, and I'm going to read what the tweet says. Quote, anyone who's been in the NFL knows QB1 competition isn't really a thing. Very rare. It's about choosing the guy who you believe gives you the best chance to win and maximizing his reps, especially when the money emoji plays a factor. Mary Kay Cabot has been right all along. In my opinion, she's got inside sources. It's Deshaun Watson's job to lose. Compare his footwork, fundamentals, and balance to when he last played, and it's a complete 180. Still got to prove it in games, but him and Quincy Avery, his quarterback coach, put in work. Like it or not, Shedeur Sanders and Dillon Gabriel are competing for quarterback 2. One will not be a Cleveland Brown, and strong play boosts trade value for both because they both have started games. This isn't some cakewalk for Shedeur either. Dillon Gabriel beat out Shedeur last preseason. Dillon Gabriel is also the higher draft pick. That matters. Taylor Green will be quarterback 3. If you're unsure who QB1 is, watch who's getting the bulk of first-team reps. They may not name it soon, but they still have to prepare a starter. Right now, that's Deshaun Watson. End of the tweet. So, let's talk about that. In his opinion, Deshaun Watson is probably going to be the starter, at least right now. And that Mary Kay Cabot has been right. And in his opinion, he says, in his opinion, she's got inside sources, which is what a lot of us have been saying, but have been getting attacked for saying. Mary Kay Cabot is not making this up. Somebody in the building is telling her Deshaun is in the lead currently. So he goes on to say, watch who's getting the bulk of first team reps. And that's difficult for us to know because we only 1 day of voluntary team workouts were open to the public and the rest were not open to the public. So we don't know who was getting the bulk of first team reps, but I would assume, given what we know and what has been said, that it was probably Deshaun getting a lot more of these first team reps, but we don't know. That's just speculation on my part. we have to be real about this. We have to be serious about this. And Kellen Mond is telling the truth. Kellen Mond is saying, based on footwork fundamentals, Deshaun is probably in the lead. And it's not over, but I said in my last video, it is not. There's not that much time left. There's what feels like a lot of time before football games are played, but everybody wants to talk about what Todd Monken was saying after what Mary Kay said, that he hasn't chosen a quarterback and yada yada. But what he did say, what he has said, is he wants this to be done before training camp. So before training camp is only like a couple months away. Like, you only have a few opportunities of OTAs and mini camp before we get to full training camp at the end of July. It's not that much time left. You only have so few opportunities to show what you can do and why you should be the starting quarterback. In my opinion, I don't necessarily agree with Kellen Mond about Dillon Gabriel. He was a higher draft pick, but we all seem to feel like it was a high draft pick based on what the previous coach wanted, and I don't think Dillon Gabriel is a factor. But that's just me. I could be wrong. But what I do agree with is both of those gentlemen will not be Cleveland Browns. Shedeur Sanders and Dillon Gabriel both will not be Cleveland Browns. I think they'll keep Shedeur over Dillon Gabriel, but that's just my opinion. We'll see going forward. Taylon's safe. Taylon's good. He's going to be valuable. He won't be on the practice squad because somebody will be trying to steal him off the practice squad. So they're probably going to keep 3 quarterbacks on the 53. Keep Tellen Green, but yeah, like he said, one of Shedeur and Dillon's not going to make it. But it's up. I think Shedeur will make it, but it's up to him to show that he can make it, that he can improve, that he can become more consistent on what he showed during the 2025 season. And I don't want to keep rehashing this point or this topic, but because it's going to be a long summer, it's going to be a long off season, not time wise, but just how, however many times we got to keep talking about, oh, is Shedeur getting reps? Oh, is the team sabotaging him? Oh, this, oh, that. I don't want to do that, but I'm sure we're going to have to do it. But yeah, Kellen Mond seems to think, like a lot of people seem to think, it's Deshaun's job to lose. And I'm sorry. At this moment, I agree with that. Do I want that? No. I don't see, like we've said this a lot. I don't see what the benefit in Deshaun being the starter would be, unless they go on a crazy playoff run. There is no real upside for that. Like, unless he turns back the clock and he's 24-year-old Deshaun Watson and not 31-year-old Deshaun Watson, there's no upside to having him play. Let me be clear. I want Shedeur Sanders to be the starter for the Cleveland Browns. I am a fan of Shedeur Sanders. I'm a fan. I am a fan. But he has to earn it. He has to earn it. He has to earn it. And right now, remains to be seen if he will. So that's all I got on that. Hopefully I don't get attacked for that. But thank you guys. Appreciate you guys watching. This will be, you're watching this this comes out Friday. I am recording this before the Cavs have played, so I don't know what's happening. I don't know who will have won, but maybe I'll probably get back on here, drop a video after Game 3, Saturday night after Game 3. So we'll talk about it then. But in the meantime, again, thanks for watching. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys soon.